Hey everybody, this is Ashley Baird, President of North America for SoftwareOne, and we're here with our first social series with Marquette, from the field to the boardroom, and I am super excited to be here with Sarah. Sarah, title, tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah, it's great to be here. My name is Sarah Bobert. I'm an Executive Associate Athletic Director and the Senior Women Administrator at Marquette University.
Ooh, that is quite the title.
It is.
How did you get
there? A lot
there?
of words. Well, I kind of took an unconventional path from some others. I grew up in an athletic family, but zero athletic talent. So I didn't think there was a chance I could ever be in athletics. But in college, got exposed to the business side. And so I came into athletics through the athletic business piece, worked at the NCAA office for a few years, and then got an opportunity to come back to campus at Marquette 25 years ago now, and it's been wonderful.
That's amazing.
I've loved it.
So you've been around athletes. I was an athlete.
You were an athlete,
right?
yes.
And so I think we're here to talk about like your perspective on what you're seeing, especially for women in this space, and what I've essentially, been able to bring to quote unquote the boardroom, which has been a journey, that's for sure. So off the soccer field, I went straight into like tech, and I had no idea what I was doing. And now I get a seat at the board table, so it's been exciting.
And I mean, I've watched your career. It's been wonderful to watch you grow. I saw you on the soccer field. I saw your growth there. But me being in athletics, I've seen the growth of women. Talk to me a little bit about how you kind of overcame that gender bias and those barriers that you may have encountered along the way as a female.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that athletics has taught me is, well, probably two things. One is you get what you put into it, right? And that was a really natural transition to the field of tech and sales, because the work that you put in, you're constantly having to relearn everything, right? So the philosophy around like going out and like practicing on your own, doing drills on your own, like that mental muscle that you build as a kid is able to like come essentially to the workplace. And then like being a jock, right? So like basically I was surrounded by a lot of guys all the time, and you had to be able to hold your own to making jokes and like talking about real world stuff, hanging out with like all of the jocks all the time because I was an athlete my whole life. And so it built up actually a lot of confidence. And that I think is one of the biggest things that women need, is like confidence and like reassurance that you have every right to like be at the table. You have every right to tell somebody your opinion and what direction you want to drive. And when you're a competitor, the best thing is winning, and that builds so much confidence. So that's really what I've seen. What about you? What are you seeing with essentially the athletes right now at Marquette? Have you seen a change there?
Yes, but still there's that resilience, like you said, that fight, that those qualities of leadership that I think are always part of being an athlete, and will always be there. I think just the world of college athletics itself is really transforming, especially when it comes to the women's side.
Do you think it's lagging, behind, ahead?
If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, without hesitation, I would have said lagging.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's so much momentum right now. I think back to 2021 when Sedona Prince, the women's basketball player from Oregon, put out on social media the inequities between the two weight rooms, between the men's and the women's, and it really just kind
the
of
video footage. That was so eye-opening.
And it like exploded, and that resulted in this whole review done by the NCAA, and as a result of that, you're really seeing some exciting changes, more resources, more marketing. It just the exposure too. You turn on the TV and you can find women's sports on TV now, which you couldn't do, a while ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so.
Where do you think
so
it's going to be in
exciting.
like 10 years? Like, do you think it will continue at this momentum?
I do. I think the momentum is just so strong now that there's no turning back at this time. We're seeing increased attendance. We're seeing, like I said, increased exposure. Just a couple weeks ago, Nebraska volleyball played a volleyball game outdoors in their football stadium. I mean, who would have ever thought,
cool.
in front of 92,000 plus people, and set a world record for the largest crowd at a women's sporting event. I mean, who would have thought, you know? And here at Marquette, we played Wisconsin in Fiserv in front of over 17,000 and set, you know, an NCAA indoor record as well as the most watched sporting event in the state of Wisconsin. So there's just so much excitement, and you think about, you know, Simone Biles and what she's brought to women's sports, and even some of the other Olympians that are going back into college athletics, you know, then the gymnasts and the attendance that's growing, and you know, now you're seeing more professional opportunities for women, you know. I think about when you came out, you know, your opportunity most likely was going international, you know, and now there's so many other opportunities, and the WNBA is growing, and it's just, I feel like there's so much momentum. We can only keep going forward. We really,
and I think that, like, what it's really important for women to understand, though, too, is like, there's this, you know, the NCAA, I think, advertisement, the commercial that shows it's like a certain percentage, only a certain percentage of people go pro. Right. And that's true. That's just factually accurate, right?
Absolutely.
And I think the bias around, like, taking and excelling women's athletics or women athletes and being able to transition them into the workplace, the more we can, like, level that up, and the more that we can, like, show women that actually your time that you're putting in when you're in high school and when you're at university actually is time invested in your career. And I think that that changes the mindset, because oftentimes athletes go in like their dream is to go pro. And, like, we need to change that perception that, like, going pro and getting a full-time job in a really fast-paced industry should be perceived as equality. Because your career is forever, right? And yes, obviously, if you have a chance to go pro, who wouldn't want to go pro? But it's not for everybody, and it's short-lived, and it's a very narrow field. And so helping women understand that, like, when you're on the soccer field, you know, in my world, you're actually, the time that you spend outside the pitch and what you're doing in the classroom and what you're doing in with your teammates is actually a mental investment in your career. But we have to, like, show them what that looks like and talk about it. Right.
And, you know, we do some programming with our student athletes, some leadership programming, but I mean, you mentioned a little bit, you know, it's that whole empowerment of women and how can we use, you know, sports to help grow that empowerment of women. And so, you know, it's just, I think, continuing to have those conversations and to work with our young women in college and making sure that they understand that what, like you said, what athletics brings to them and what qualities, you know, can help them move forward. And
and you also have, like, not to stereotype, but you also have generally very specific characteristics of a top performing athlete, right? Especially at Division I. You're going to have motivated individuals. You're going to have people who go above and beyond. You're going to have people that are super competitive. Like when we're SoftwareOne is a strengths-based company, which means we do everything on strengths finders, and so we only focus on your top strengths. And across the board, the majority of our sellers are competitive and achievers. And, like, it equates to athletes.
Absolutely.
And so talking more about how you understand your strengths at an early age and how those actually go into the career, right? And helping people have build up confidence on both sides of the gender fence to understand, like, I am really competitive, and that's actually a really good thing when it comes to work. But people don't talk about that, right? They just assume that competition means political games, or, like, I'm going to cut corners, and it's like, no, you play to win. What's wrong with that? So.
And you work to win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what else? Last thoughts before we close out?
You know, I think it's just, I mean, we talked a little bit about empowerment, and, you know, you're young in your profession, and, you know, I see myself as a mentor. So, you know, I think my role is to really work with our young women and help them, like you said, you know, grow into whether it's business, sports. And my message when I talk to them is it's wide open. It's really yours to do what you want to with. So, you know, go get that dream, and, you know, don't be afraid to to step out of bounds a little bit and be vulnerable. I think,
Yeah.
Vulnerability is something that some people are afraid of, but I think it's critical to that growth and that empowerment like you talked about. So,
Yeah.
no,
I agree.
I'm excited about where we've been, where we're going.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
Obviously, it's been great to watch
I
you.
know.
So
Well, Marquette's
congratulations
been
on all
an
of yours.
incredible partner
Yeah.
for us, and you guys are really, really investing in women athletics, and I can't wait to continue the series.
Yeah, and
so.
thank you so much for all of your
Yes,
support. This is
absolutely.
exciting. So
All right.
thank
Go
you,
Marquette.
Ashley. Go Marquette.